Okay, I think we can start. If anyone is gonna come later on, they can catch up, I guess. So welcome everybody. It's good to be here with all of you. We've spoken quite a lot in the past few days through emails. We're very happy actually to organize this workshop. It's one of the official workshops and meetings that we have. As you all know, we have invited outside stakeholders that can help us with all the process. This is the agenda. Practically, we're going to give the floor to Ernesto to just give us an introduction on the INFINITECH and give us a summary across all the different clusters and pilots. And then each one of the pilots is going to present the presentation as according to the template that we have discussed. We have also scheduled a few Q&As during and it's after one of the presentations, so we can just dive into more details about each one of the pilots. And by the end, we can actually discuss anything else that is on our heads, whatever we want to know about each other. The goal of today's meeting is to understand a bit more in detail what is the current state, if there are any potential synergies between the pilots, any roadblocks, anything that we need help, and what is the plan ahead. So feel free to just jump and ask any questions. Feel free to just type your questions there, and the presenters can reply to you when the time is right. So yeah, Ernesto, if you would like to say a few words before we start with the presentations.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to present a little bit INFINITECH. I also would like to hear from the pilot, so I will be very brief. So again, my name is Ernesto Troiano. I'm a senior manager of GFT, and I'm on behalf of GFT, the project manager and coordinator of this project, which is a, let me check again if I can go to the next slide. So this slide says that this is a huge project funded by the European Commission with a robust funding, 16 million euros, started on October 2019 and will end actually in 2023 because we have requested an amendment to allow more space for the pilot also to develop. So the duration will be 43 months instead of 39 planned. We have 48 partners right now. Partners are going back and forth because of many, let's say, developments from the partners. And the project is about introducing new technologies like big data, IoT, machine learning, especially in solving the problems of the financial sector. We start from some motivation about what is affected the financial and insurance sector. AI, first of all, is introducing in the problems of the financial sectors, but we not have enough solid and robust frameworks to solve that architecture, if you want. So there will be some AI use cases addressed. One of the problems of the sector is data barriers, silos. The data are from different departments, or for different sources, and to merge them and to have some intelligence over them requires, of course, a lot of effort. So local test bed and resources for the solutions that we need, and besides that, most importantly, business models for introducing new services out of a very complex regulatory environment. So the mission of INFINITECH is introducing new technologies in order to democratize the adoption of the new technologies and solutions, especially big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, but also addressing blockchain, IoT, and all the trendy technologies that we have, like as weapons. So we would like to have better services, looking for a personalization in the finance services and products. So personalized investment, asset management, customer-centered analytics, KYC, KYB, fraud detection, anti-money laundering. These are the topics addressed by INFINITECH, and we approach them from all the sides. From the business and regulatory requirement, we address, of course, all the European directives, GDPR, PSD2, AML4. So there is a very complicated scenario that we put into the picture in order to have always in mind what we should cope with when developing our solution. Besides, the INFINITECH also aims to develop sandboxes over test beds, over infrastructure, where to play with the solution, to refine them, to test them, and to propose to early adopters or to the market. So we put everything into the picture, and of course, at the core of the project, there are pilots. We have 15 pilots that will address different sectors of the industry. I'm very proud to manage also a very large part of the sector, from universities and research center to vendors, but especially this project brings into the development, finance and insurance institution, and fintech and insurance tech company. I don't name anyone, not to be offensive to anyone. Anyway, the pilot are the core of the project, and we have 5 clusters. So we will speak about today about the personalized retail investment bank services, but we address also smart, reliable, and accurate risk assessment. We have fraud and financial crime addressed in different pilots. Also, insurance sector is involved with personalized insurance based on IoTs, connected cars, agriculture, weather. Everything is taken into account when it comes to propose new services. So briefly, where we are out of the 24th month of the project, so 2 years have been spent in the project, and we have produced prototypes, demonstrator, building blocks, especially a reference architecture that will also guide the development of different solutions. A lot of paper, of course. There's how to demonstrate that we have done something with respect to the commission. We produce very high quality reporting that are available. So for the also for the public, they are available as a source of information, of knowledge, of data that we share. We have involved stakeholders, of course, and this is one of the occasions to get also from the stakeholders some feedback. We need your opinions. We need your feedback to better refine what we are developing. We have produced quite substantial work. So the key objectives already achieved for the project are a reference architecture, a unified data management, a framework for data governance, a semantic interoperability, which is key in the sector when we deal with data, and we want to have more information about what the data are, how we can go with them. Library of machine learning and deep learning algorithm available also from our marketplace. We'll talk about later. Sandboxes specifically tailored for the solution and the pilot that we have. We are validating the pilot also with respect to the market, and we have defined a specific business plans and methodology to go out to the market with the project. So we are very proud to have defined what we call the INFINITECH way. There are many ways to solve the problems, but we have out of the state of the art of the technology and the methodology define our own, which we believe it gives a competitive advantage to the solution providers, to the bank, to the insurance company when they adopt it to leverage, of course, the effort and the solution. So I don't mention in specific everything, but we will have a methodology available also to others. So this is the iconic picture of the reference architecture. You will see that we have comprised everything in the block. It's very flexible. You can build out of the building blocks different solution managing with data. Again, the project as an approach for the execution around a stack of components that we put into the INFINITECH way framework, if you want to build and to test, especially to try with different product and solution of the different problems. Very important things is the marketplace and the VDIH that are our channel to go out with the content, with the relevant, let's say, outcomes that we have produced. So the marketplace is almost there, where we put the components, the solution out of the box so they can be reused. We have also a stakeholder alliance, and we would like to join so we can exchange more information and background. I so recommend you to stay in touch with the project. Of course, the website is www.infinitech-h2020.eu, and you can reach us out. And that's all for the project introduction. I also want to hear the pilot, so that's all from my side. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm still here.
Thank you, Ernesto.
You're welcome.
That was a good introduction. I don't know if there are any questions from participants. Let me check. I think we're good for now, but Ernesto, you will be around. So if anything comes up later on, perfect. Thank you. So we can start actually with the first pilot, pilot number 4. I think Anna is going to be the one presenting from their side. Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Actually, myself and Roland, we will be presenting, and we also invited to our partners. So I will quickly share my screen.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. I can do that.
Does it work?
No.
Not yet.
Please try again. Hi, Roland.
Hello, everybody.
So it should be working now.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Martin.
Okay, perfect.
Anna, we see your video screen, not the presentation so far.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Okay, then let me potentially start with the first slides, and then Anna will and can continue. First of all, thank you very much for having the possibility today to present the current status of the pilot 4 together with our partners and my team. As you may know, I'm not sure if everybody knows us. My name is Roland Meyer. I'm the managing director for Privé in Europe. We are a worldwide active fintech with the European holding company located in Austria, in Vienna. Our target of the pilot, to recap a little bit, what was the initial target when we approached the INFINITECH project back in 2019, was to create a step and a user journey to offer private banking like portfolio advisory services in the end to everyone. Yeah. Because as you may all know, in financial services industry, private banking services you may only get if you put round about 500,000 euro on the table, or a little bit less or a little bit more. And then you get the best advisory banks or asset managers will offer you. But if you come with only, let's say, 10,000 euro to a bank, then you normally always get a standardized either fund offering or portfolio offering, but there is in the end nothing personalized here. And that was the approach for the pilot, to offer a kind of private banking like service, but also for, let's say, for the broader retail clients. And this based and combined with an optimization algorithm, which we have been developing now on a, we call it genetic approach, but this is in the end a kind of an artificial intelligence based calculation algorithm, which is different from current optimization algorithms like a Markowitz or a value at risk model. And this is then combined in a user journey, which we already presented before the summer in the General Assembly for the interim review, combined with an automated portfolio generation tool, which we will show later then, where the single investor can select some preferred preferences for his personal investments, like we have it all now also regulatory driven ESG compliant investments, or some regional preferences the customer has, or some topics where the customers believes in, like, I don't know, electromobility or mega trends or something like that. Yeah. And that using global financial data sources that of course in future will be dependent on which data sources a potential customer, like a bank, like an insurance company, will have licensed. And then together with this algorithm for portfolio optimization, which shall help also the advisors to offer an ongoing service to the customers, not only initially when the portfolio is initially designed and the relevant assets are bought into the portfolio of the customer, but also on an ongoing basis, like make a yearly review to have a look if the portfolio still, if the financial assets still meet the client's preferences or not. And this is exactly this user journey and this pilot structure we defined in the beginning. Anna, please, next slide. And the use case in the end is always this smaller allocations, where we have now also added in the past months an optimization allocation, where also we avoid to have small positions within such portfolios. Like if you have only 10,000 euro, you most probably will not like to have a position with only 1% of your assets, which is then only 100 euro, because then potentially the cost for buying and selling these kind of positions will be higher than the potential profit or the potential gain you can create. And therefore the advisors can put this in dependent on the amount which the customers of course have free for investment. And this is now also implemented on the AI Go procedure, where every user on a personalized level can define and specify this acceptable minimum of an asset in these generated portfolios. So that in the end, the portfolios are also a little bit more stable and robust, and also avoid unneeded cost, so to say. And therefore, this kind of portfolios will then have, of course, some potential positions less. And here you see on the right-hand side on the bottom, we made also some testing. If we put this kind of minimum allocation restriction within that optimization process, that in the end, the portfolio health or the stability and the performance of these kind of portfolios do not differ so much from portfolios where this restriction is not applying to. Next slide, please. besides the existing fitness factors, for those who did not take part in the presentation in May, fitness factors in our language is always that customers define what is their goal. Is it more the goal to have the highest return, or is it more the goal to have the lowest risk, the lowest volatility, that they do not get so much drawdowns and so on. These are always fitness factors and can be defined on a portfolio level, because we will have customers who say, I'm not so much caring about the risk as long as my return is good enough. And others will say, I'm a little bit fearing the risk and therefore I do not want to have the highest return, but the lowest volatility in terms of drawdowns and losses potentially I can create. Yeah. Here we added some additional fitness factors now to the classical ones, which is the so-called region preference factor, where we had the demand and saw it from different potential stakeholders and customers, that they also say, okay, they have customers who say, I only want to invest in Europe, or I only want to invest in the US or in Asia, or I want to have Asia at a maximum level of X%. And therefore we implemented this kind of regional preferences, where the customers can define, okay, if they want to invest globally or if they want to invest only in Europe. And then this preference, these regional preferences will be taken into account by doing the portfolio construction, and will be also maintained and controlled by a kind of an annual review if the portfolio still meets the preferences the single customer has set. The next fitness factor which was added in the past months was the so-called equal weight factor, that if customers say, I don't want to have my portfolio that where is one position 50% and another position is only 10%, and the smallest position is only 3%. I want to have them all nearly on the level between 10 and 20%, that this factor can be pulled in, so that the system then controls that there is no position having a massive overweight and also no positions having a massive underweighting. And this will help then to create also a little bit of a more stable portfolio, because then the movement in a single asset does not affect so much the full portfolio, because if it's potentially overweighted. And the third fitness factor, which was implemented in the past months and was already announced in May, was the ESG factor. This is also a little bit regulatory driven, because the whole European Union, but also worldwide, we see this the same in the US and the same in Asia. Everybody is now thinking, how can I drive my investments towards ESG compatibility for environmental, social, and governance factors. And there we are having now the possibility to put this ESG factor in, which can be always driven by customer-driven definitions. If customers say, okay, I have my own ESG policy, and please, I implement this within this AI Go system, then this can be taken into account. Or we also can rely on third-party data sources like MSCI, like Morningstar, because they are all offering now new ESG parameterization of financial assets, and these parameters can be imported then into our system. Of course, this is always then a data license issue, that the customers who want to use such third parties in most cases will have to pay some data license fees. But if they do, and if they have this licensed already for the other use cases within the bank, then they can also use this ESG data, which is imported from third parties via the Privé portfolio optimization algorithm. Okay, next slide. Anna, next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, then as you may all know, we have in our pilot Report Brain as our partner, where we are working together with them on a kind of fitness factor for sentiment data, where Report Brain will then provide the sentiment data sets. And that can be also then integrated as a fitness function. I think Report Brain will have then later on some more slides about their current status from Privé side. This sentiment data, which we then can import into this AI Go algorithm, can be also used for optimization if customers say that the sentiment score is important for me to define if an individual asset can or shall be used as an input to the optimization process or not. Current status here is that the first, let's say, proof of concept tests have been performed and looks so far so good. And we need now, or let's say that's the joint task here, that we get this in a machine readable format in the end a kind of a numeric way that we can interpret from the data which we get from Report Brain by getting, let's say, 1 or 0 or some numbers in between. If the sentiment data is positive or is negative for certain financial assets. Yeah, and then I will forward the word to our colleague from Atos. I'm not sure, Nuri, are you here? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Then thank you very much from my side, and happy to answer all your questions later on. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so now Atos is going to provide the Duo solution digital user onboarding system for integrating in this pilot. This solution is for dealing with virtual identities in mobile devices. And at this moment, we have defined the place in which duos will participate in the flow, and we are working on this new functionality. As you can, this solution will be provided if a customer, for example, a bank or advisor company requires it for a new retail customer. The flow, as you can see here, is we have here a portal, for example, from a bank, an asset manager, or an advisor provides this portal, the first box, in which the new retail customer can be registered. He clicks on Duo's mobile identification, and the portal provides a QR code. After that, this new retail customer takes his mobile phone with the Duo's application and performs the virtual identity selection, for example, from his passport or identity card. Okay, and then he reads the QR code from the customer onboarding portal, and then he performs the face recognition. After that is the identification. It happens success and authentication and identification, and the data are collected. After that, we return to the customer onboarding portal, and in this case, Privé application receives successfully the identification of the customer and takes the identification data provided by Duos and takes them for the data model. Next slide, please. Well, the importance of this is that we are providing a solution for dealing with virtual identities in a mobile device, providing remote user registration using electronic identification or passport. It provides various identity proofing and verification services that links with the new user identity creation, because they are virtual identities in the mobile device, and it links with government user identification because they verify the electronic data stored on the chip and verifies the machine readable zone with the use of optical character recognition. In our pilot, the case is that if a customer that is an asset manager, bank, or an advisor company requires as a precondition the identification services for new retail customer, those could be integrated in a real customer application. If we have this potential integration, the asset manager or the advisor could provide then for new retail clients the risk profiling and personalization services for the investment of this client, and would provide a portfolio optimization. The retail customer would be registered in the portal. The portal that, as I described, was defined by the bank or the asset manager or the advisor, and they can access to this data. The customer-specific onboarding solution could call Duo's application if the customer required this. The challenges is that we have to use identity cards or passport issued by European national authorities according to the European EID schemas, and the integration with the real customer application. And I think that's all from my side.
So I think you should be able to see my screen once again. Thank you very much, Nuria, for your presentation. We would like now to move to the pilot's workflows and innovation. Here, first, you can see the workflow that most of you are already familiar with. What we want to show that the AI genetic optimization algorithm shall create personalized and, of course, preference-based investment propositions for retail clients, where the clients can define their personal investment goals by the choice of risk profiling, also region preferences and ability preferences, and also other settings. This shall result in return in portfolio for customers, where the personal selected preferences are better reflected, and the risk control is, of course, also better standardized for their advisors and or asset managers. This leads me to the business innovation. Of course, as you already heard, this is an automatic risk scoring process, which is based on a personalization via various preferences selection, such as ESG or sustainability, also regions, product type selection, etc. It is also, of course, an AI-based genetic portfolio optimization, which allows, in return, a flexibility in portfolio construction. That means that it's also driven by risk parameters like volatility, also various performance targets, and those risk and returns targets can also be defined and agreed spatially with individual investor for portfolio construction, which allows a high level of personalization. And also there are specific additional fitness factors like sentiment data provided by our partner Report Brain. More about this you will hear later on in the presentation. And finally, in business innovation aspect, we identify our blockchain integration. It is a new added task in our pilot. And here we will add a first step implementation of a managed single node blockchain setup. We will start working on this in the following months, and we'll provide you with the updates later. It's the goal here, and what we want to show and achieve that this blockchain integration will persist securities and asset transaction and financial asset positions in a standard format identified by us. Also, technical innovations of the pilot. First, of course, that AIGO is a new developed AI-based portfolio construction tool. And this is a concept for portfolio construction, which is available via an automated calculation process, which makes the whole journey easier for the potential customer. And of course, it is based on a calculation of various portfolios iterations to define the fittest and hence personalized portfolios based on customer preferences. And of course, as mentioned, we can add alternative data providers like sentiment data analysis based data, for example, from report rate indicators. This leads me to hand over my presentation to Victoria, who will present a news article sentiment API version 4 from report brain.
Good morning, everybody. So I will present our news article sentiment API. It's version 4. Of course, we still work on enhancing this API, so probably we'll get in a version 5 at some point. So our sentiment score is an additional information, but it's still important, and it's about the sentiment about particular entity. So we can find this information by analyzing the news articles or social media like Twitter around the world, and we can do it in any language. So we don't actually care if what language is the article. We can actually take the sentiment from that. So the sentiment score can be used in portfolio management to optimize the asset allocation, as Roland and Anna said already. So the use cases for INFINITECH, it's as said before, portfolio management and stock modeling enhancement, stock price prediction, and credit rating for open source big data. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what is the sentiment analysis? It's the state-of-the-art methodology based on deep learning techniques trained on millions of articles. And it's extremely powerful to detect the sentiment analysis on financial articles. And we can provide this sentiment as a score to be positive, neutral, or negative. Here you can see that we set it as +1, 0, or -1, but it can be any number that end user wants. So we can do it 1 to 10 or any other number range. And the sentiment index that we use, we can provide complete picture of any entity, for example, company, a ticker, a public figure. We can show it in a time interval, so we can see how the sentiment was changing during a particular time. And as I said before, we can show it as any number range. Next slide, please. So you can see here an input example from our endpoint. This input can be, it should be in JSON format. So you can see the query here as an example. And the next slide, please. And this is the output example where you can see at the end that the sentiment, for example, here it's 1. And this is a quick presentation of our API. If you have any questions, we can of course provide documentation and answer the questions later on. The contact will be in the end of the presentation, I suppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria. And now we will quickly recap and provide you some conclusions, and we'll mainly talk about the KPIs overview and progress. Here's the short overview. So basically we identified here operational and business-driven KPIs. Operational ones are, for example, flexible portfolio construction, also accuracy of and developer portfolio construction, and of portfolio reporting after the portfolio construction and execution of investment decisions. Coming to the business-driven KPIs, some of them are improved advisor productivity, also hyper-personalization of portfolio construction. We also aim to increase customer satisfaction with better risk-adjusted portfolios. About the progress, as you already heard, we developed and enhanced new and already existing fitness factors that enable efficiency measurement. Some of them are listed here, for example, minimum return gap volatility factor, also Shape ratio factor, and the newly added factors such as ETF, regional fitness factors. We also continuously monitor the overall time that is needed to create such investment proposals. And already identified in the beginning of the project, our aim is to create such personalized investment proposals in less than 10 minutes. Some more details we would like to show you now in our short video that we prepared, and I will show you the video shortly. And please let me know if you can hear the sound.
Kpis Technologies presenting pilot number 4, personalized portfolio management, how private banking could be for everyone. Update November 2021. Last time we presented the status of our development. This contained editing the user's risk profile, which contained roughly 10 different questions, editing the user's investment preferences, included sustainability, ETFs, regions, and investment themes. And we presented the personalized portfolio proposal generated by Kpis portfolio optimization algorithm based on the user's risk score and all investment preferences. That's what we had delivered in May this year. What did we add now to the prototype? We added the option to define a core satellite strategy, a special method of portfolio construction, part of the investment preferences section. The idea behind this strategy is to improve the portfolio's return and cost structure by actively managing the combination of core investments, e.g. funds or ETFs investing in broad markets, plus adding satellites, which are focused investment opportunities. New is also the look-through analysis, which allows a professional and private investor to understand portfolio exposure from multiple perspectives. This includes asset allocation, showing the general investment focus of the proposed portfolio, followed by the sector analysis, showing how diversified the proposal is by different industries. The geographic exposure illustrates the regional presence of the investments contained in the funds of the proposed portfolio. And the currency exposure shows the currency origin of the investments in this portfolio. What are the next steps? Backtesting of the proposed portfolio will show in a convincing manner how each particular portfolio performed during past crises and how long it took to recover. The goal attainment is an additional source of trust, comparing how each individual requirement was met by the portfolio proposal. The function of benchmarking will generate additional trust, showing that the proposed portfolio is able to generate a sufficient performance. Last but not least, the final trust-building element is to illustrate how a new proposed portfolio compares to an existing investment. At Kpis Technologies, we are right on track to build fully individualized portfolio proposals for everyone. Thank you.
So that was a short overview about the updates we have so far. And here we also inserted the link events of Pilot 4. We're also happy to elaborate on this if needed. So far, this was all from our side. We are thankful for your attention and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you for this presentation. Can you just stay a moment on the business canvas, I guess, just for the rest to have a look? Yeah. We can start with the questions. Actually, I do have a question that's just raised. Do you have some kind of an academy or training for the individualized portfolio preferences, or do you have that in your roadmap somehow?
Sorry, I did not get the question on that. So.
Yes, of course. So when someone starts using the tool, are you offering or are you planning to offer a type of training? So for someone it's
Okay,
hard
yeah,
to decide if they want
yeah,
to.
now I understood.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that will depend on the use case. Yeah, let's say for the first use case we are working on right now already with one interested party. It's a B2B use case, yeah, where we offer this to an insurance company, and they will then present this to their advisors. Yeah, they are in the end our training, and there is also then also some kind of FAQs and so on created, how, in which step, which question, if you answer it in this way or in another way, how this will affect then this from the system side. Yeah, this will be the typical use case for the B2B area, because all these advisors, financial intermediaries are normally used to have any kind of regulatory driven advisory process where they anyway need to provide to their end clients certain documentation, signatures from the clients that they understood what they did and so on. The more we go to retail, yeah, to a, let's call it a direct access B2C offering, then of course a kind of how to say, a guided user journey where every step needs to be explained a little bit more. We have seen it a little bit in the video where you then have these short sentences and some information pop-ups if somebody wants to know more about what does this regional preference or the shown core satellite preference, what does this cause in the whole process, yeah, and also what is the preference setting, yeah, because for example, let's take ESG, there you always will have typically 3 preferences, yeah. First preference will be I don't care. Second preference will be ESG 100%, yeah, ESG only. And second and third preference most probably will be, and this is I think the most popular one right now, is yeah, I want to have it preferred, but it must not be 100%, yeah. And then you need to define what means preferred. Is it 50%? Is it 60%? Is it 70%? And exactly such an information you typically will have to provide then within this user journey. Yeah, I hope this answers your questions.
It doesn't. We understand. Like the sky's limit there. You can have multiple, tree decision tree.
Exactly. Yeah, that's always at some point in time somebody needs to take a decision, because there is no truth. If we say ESG preferred is 60% or 70%, sorry to say so direct, but that's a matter of taste. Yeah, there is no proof. Yeah, that's. Somebody see it with 70%, somebody will see it with 60, somebody will see it with 80, but that's exactly how the system is built. Yeah, that means in such a B2B offering, then our customer, which is typically then a bank or an asset manager, will need to define. Yeah? And then somebody needs to sit down and say, okay, my ESG preference is, if it's not 100%, then preferred means 70%. Yeah, and that's it. And that can be then configured in the platform, and we are fine. Yeah, and if the next customer says it's 60%, then we also can do that. Yeah, that's because this needs to be this flexibility, which is exactly the basis also of the whole platform. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Because we have brought a partner from here in Greece, the Greek fintech cluster. So they have a few questions for you. But if there is anyone else who wants to ask something from the rest of the partners and the stakeholders, if not, okay, Panagiotis.
From Athens, maybe some of the questions could actually mobilize the conversation. Initially, I was about to ask how do you manage to calibrate the data, and if you recalibrate periodically, but you kind of answered it saying that you always go back to the data and see how it affects the portfolios and the behavior of the investors. So I'm going to ask more about how do you feel the digital onboarding will affect the know your customer in the midterm. For example, here in Greece, we have seen that the digital onboarding of the banks has been used on gov.gr, the main website of interaction between citizens and the government. So how could you use that in other use cases beside the portfolio management and the banking?
Yeah, Yeah, let's say exactly this calibration is the core capability, because it's not only in Greece. We see several projects where we are more active in Austria and Germany. If we do, let's say, risk profiling for one bank and would assume that this should be good also for another bank, you can nearly be sure that the second bank will tell you a complete different story. Yeah? Therefore, it's always part of their, part of their business intelligence and their business procedures, and also of their USPs they want to present. If they do, let's say, this know your customer process and the risk profiling steps, if they take 5 questions or 10 questions, there is also, if the regulator accepts, typically, then it's okay. That's just, even if the regulator accepts 2 different ways from 2 different banks, it's also okay. Yeah? And that's exactly what we try to implement here. Yeah? There is a sample of questions, yeah, which were normally typically asked. Yeah? I'm not sure, potentially you did not see what we presented also in May when we made this risk profiling a little bit more detail in the presentation, but we can follow up later on if you are interested. But there I think we selected around about 8 to 9 questions, yeah, which is typically asked. But if somebody says, okay, I only want to have 5, 6 questions because I want to have it more mobile driven, yeah, because that's also always a question of how long you will bother your customer with these questions, yeah, because some say after 5 questions the customer is already nervous and annoyed, yeah, or if it's also okay to ask him 10 questions. Yeah, that's a question exactly of this user journey, definitions, yeah, and then come. And that's, I think, the most important step here. Yeah? And then come very fast to the points which the customer is really interested in. Yeah, because to be honest, he's not interested that you ask him 5 questions about his risk appetite. Yeah, that's you have to do, but nobody's interested in that. Yeah, to be honest. But if he's interested in, oh, I can select my preference in electromobility, or I can select my preference in digitization innovation, I can select my ESG preference, I can select that I only want to invest in Europe and nowhere else in the world. Yeah, and that's interesting for the customer. And there, this let's call it a little bit a kind of a gamification factor needs to be constructed, yeah, so that customers really like to use this journey, yeah, and then like to play around. If they put in the factor for, I don't know, for ESG 100%, how this is different if he puts it then only with preferred, which is then 70%, yeah, and how the different portfolio proposals will look like. And this is exactly what the platform is. And therefore, I think this was not mentioned, not today, you see it here on the Canvas table. Therefore, also this kind of business intelligence functionality, which is developed, will be also available via APIs, yeah? Meaning, if you want to build then your own user journey and just use, let's say 5 or 6 or 7 API calls from Privé to put only partially the business intelligence which was built during this pilot here, and the rest of the journey, let's say the risk profiling or the output then is built on your own, that also will be possible. That's exactly this open framework, which is a little bit also the overall target, of course, within whole INFINITECH project, to also make available parts of the development via APIs, so that other third parties from other software vendors or data providers can also use this business intelligence.
Great.
Yeah, sure. Panagiotis, go ahead.
If you're okay with time, more question would be if you have predicted or you are already working on the checking how the investor behavior affects the market in the long term. For example, what happens if you have more risk-averse investors? What happens to the market in the mid or long term? If you have a kind of feedback in the opposite kind of direction.
You mean kind of a forecasting, if I understood you correct?
Yes.
Macroeconomy approach.
Examining the behavior of the investors, not vice versa.
it's a difficult discussion, because that's difficult from the technical point of view, like this. To be clear here, there is much research about that. All these kind of forecasting processes in financial industry, to be honest, did not work out so well in the past 20 years. Yeah, and
it's
we
kind
all
of random by default.
We all saw the COVID crisis now. Most of the old models, let's say value at risk and so on, did not work out then. Yeah, because it's quite logical. Nobody had a COVID crisis in his model inside. Yeah, that's because nobody could have imagined that something happens. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, and therefore we are, let's say, we are quite reluctant to model this in. But what we do is we factor this in with fitness factors, meaning if there is a macroeconomic fitness factor, which could be an enhancement, fair enough, would give such a more robust view outlook on, let's call it on such macro figures like inflation and these kind of things, then this could be modeled in. To be honest, we did not do it so far, but it could be. And what you meant with customer behavior and what is the trend within the customer, this is exactly one point where we see, for example, the future also with such sentiment indicators, because that's exactly where you get out some, and therefore the cooperation with Report Brain in this first step makes absolutely sense, to have also this, let's call it more the forward-looking, which is not obvious to everybody right now, which in financial industry you always said, even if the taxi drivers are discussing about it, then everybody knows. But what's the topics which are not discussed with the taxi drivers? And I think this is exactly the target, to have additional indicators. There will be some more research necessary, and they're happy to discuss further. I even 2 days ago I had a discussion with one big insurance company how we could take let's say sentiments out of local news, because Report Brain right now is doing a global news, but those local news, like in the northern part of Austria, there is a big discussion in the media ongoing about pension funds, to get out this kind of data, so that the let's say the sales guys from this insurance company can see, let's say in northern Austria, in southern Germany, wherever there's a big media discussion about pension funds, so that the insurance company can then target a marketing strategy towards this region, because obviously everybody is discussing now this in media, not in connection with financial products and so on, but as a topic in the media, and so to approach marketing strategies. And I think this is exactly where the development for this forecast tasks will go, because then it has also business impact. And I think exactly for this, then such kind of sentiment factors, forecasting factors would make sense. That's my personal opinion here.
That's good. I would think that Report Brain could actually offer this hyper localized service. And the last question, I guess we need to move on, but on that, have you seen, like, from your tests, that the Report Brain's reports actually go according, or they can somehow forecast the general trend on a global level? Let's say, I guess you have this type of portfolios. Have you seen that they somehow go together, like what you would expect from these reports and the actual result?
To be honest, we did not do this kind of intensive testing so far.
Okay.
And the first POC with Report Brain, as far as I know, but please correct me if I'm wrong, covers mainly the Eurostoxx 50 segment, meaning let's call it the biggest European listed companies. As soon as we have implemented, we then definitely can make such testing quite easily, but it will be only a sample then, meaning to have, as you said, I also believe that there will be some localized opportunities, there will be some global opportunities, but this is exactly where we need to go further, because this what I would see also, if we see the change in society, potentially the people 45 years and older will not so be much interested in such tools, but I would say all the 30 or 35 and younger people who are used to have this via social media and so on, they will be quite much interested in such tools. And I think therefore we need to go ahead here. Yeah, I think it's a business must. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yes, that should be interesting, and maybe you're right. I don't know maybe the specifics, but when you have this data, it's like something that we will all want to know about. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think we are good for now. We can see here the business canvas. I guess Ernesto didn't jump in, so that was good. Of course, there are many things and steps ahead before you actually go to market as a separate product, but that's a good start. And thank you for the presentation. So for the next one, actually, I have pilot 3 was not supposed to present now, but they just contacted us. Give me a second to see. Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear. Yeah.
So you said that you would like just I guess it's not it's pilot 5 actually according to the schedule, but if pilot 5 is all right, then we can swap the slots. Is that all right for you guys, Dimitris?
Yeah, no problem for me.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Martin, feel free to present pilot 3 here, and we're waiting to see your presentation.
Sure. And apologies because I'm in the airport and you might hear some background noises, but I will try to do it well. So on behalf of Richard, which is the pilot leader, he has some personal issues with the doctors, and he has to take the children to the doctor, and that's why he asked me to present this time. But I will do a quick summary on the situation in the pilot 3. We kind of reinitiate the pilot at the end of the time because Bank of Ireland joined us. Also the Traffic Analysis Hub, which is a kind of a international initiative on human trafficking or stopping the human trafficking, also joined us as a pilot, and they saw the opportunities to have KYC onboarding activities, financial data sets, all these aspects for disrupting the human trafficking as a major impact. So essentially the pilot was kind of reinvented to use the KYC, KYB in favor or in pro of reducing human trafficking by using what we call the different aspects of KYC. So by having this, or by saying this, so the KYC operations are obviously the state of play. So basically every bank, every insurance organization wants to have this KYC for onboarding new customers, new people, but at the same time, they are continuously looking for this automation, intelligent tools to improve this process. Because at the end, this KYC is a process of proving the identities, affording checkabilities on match points, validating data, capture of this data and assets, etc. So all these KYC activities in this process are pretty much in a kind of a ad hoc approach. They are not automated. There is no such interoperability. There is no data exchange across the different business departments or business groups. So we came with the kind of a pilot 3 approach is let's build based on these customer services. Let's not reinvent wheels, but let's define some rules that identify or can at some point categorize or classify these disruptive elements. And then on top of that, we are going to use, or we are using what we call the enhanced models. I will come back on this one because this is basically based on typologies at the bank level, but also in the graph data modeling in the INFINITECH way. So it's kind of an enhanced modeling combination of two two different technologies. And then the main objective is to have this intelligent analysis that combines not only financial data, but also social media data. And we have some progress already. It's technology, it's legacy technology that we have, or we are onboarding in this process, in this pilot 3. So the main objective is to also provide some APIs, as I mentioned before. So the different departments can benefit from these APIs, because then they will start to use this interoperable approach from the perspective of the using data. Now, if we kind of group all these three activities, we can see that they are kind of pillars, and at the same time they are silos, because somehow the current state of play is not interoperable. The pilot 3 is just initiating this new disruptive approach, and then the innovation will come as soon as we demonstrate that these models and these graph data models and these entities can now get connected. So if we remain in these three pilots, or these three pillars, and we see how we can map our activities, so we see that we have to break silos. And the first approach is we need to understand that the new customers or the current customers might have or have different roles. And for these roles, they will have a data generation in their own ways, as a housewife, a husband, or owner of a company, or a director in a larger industry, etc. So all this is transported into what we call data generation from a financial perspective, transactions, operation, payments, all what is about the health of the financial system. And then we obviously digitalize this data into what we call the INFINITECH language. So what we are precisely doing, and this is one of the updates, we are trying to map the different typologies, the different data sets that they are defined in the banking sector, insurance sectors, sorry for the background. And then we will push this one towards what we call the stream processing analytics engines, and some what we call intelligence services that will reflect what we call the use cases. So these use cases are still, we have some already described in the deliverables, but we're still in this definition to have it more focus on the stop the traffic, because as I mentioned, we reinvent a little bit the application at the end. Now, what we have done is not only financial data, but also social media. And it is when we go into this, what we call negative news, when we see in Twitter stream, in Facebook's API, all these negative news, like someone is either stealing banks or having some human trafficking activities. So we use this information also to correlate and also process it via this stream analytics engine. Now, what is the problem to solve? So essentially, we have to create graph databases. We have to do real-time analytics, or almost real-time analytics, for processing these complex relationships. And when we talk about relationships, it's basically building a graph data model about the different interrelations that might exist at the different databases or at different levels of the information. So also we need to have what is well known in the financial sector as risk scoring, because when people approach banks and institutions, obviously they will not announce themselves as trafficking or anti-money laundering people. So we need to really increase these risk scoring capabilities based on this onboarding process of KYC and KYB. Now, at the same time, we see the benefits on using the traffic analysis scope, which is a legacy technology that is under development. But we are going to progress in using this graph analytics expert rules system to comply what we call the intelligence of the solution. Now, when we talk about this customer onboarding, we also need to be aware of this data policies, right? So the GDPR and all these constraints. So that's why we are adding some permission-based exchange of profile data. So we will automate not only the process of analyzing and detecting anti-money laundering activities or traffic, human trafficking activities, but also automating the permission-based, because it's important between these different silos to be connected or to be automated at the same time. Basically, what we are going to do is kind of a finalize these data flows that will allow the support against this human trafficking for in this our pilot for this organization called Traffic Analysis Hub, but also for all institutions like Bank of Ireland and BPFI that they are in contact directly with the stakeholders. So this is more or less the disrupting idea. So what we are doing now as an update, so we are organizing a pilot 3 event. So we are already in conversations, and we will have hopefully by December some final dates. Sorry, we're going to have very soon, and the finals will be sometime in December, that we will have these stakeholders in Ireland. We will bring them semi-presential, but also virtual, to collect all these requirements after we present our technologies and our ideas. And the main objective of this webinar or this focus area webinar is to have these data sharing requirements and the collection of the requirements for having more elements. So this is the first, let's say, activity that we are now updating towards our objectives. The second part is the innovation. So how we are going to innovate this KYC, KYB, and the automation of these services. So obviously we have to provide some sort of a intelligence, and this intelligence is based on this disrupting this ad hoc approach by increasing what we call the financial investigation units. And this is basically the elements in the data that we will leverage with the rules and the policies that we will inject in the semantic engine and other components. All this goes toward what we call the large-scale analysis or large-scale analytics. And for doing that, we have in this stream analysis, which has been proved as a good approach for disrupting what we call the large data of information. So today we're talking about 65 million of inputs or transactions per year. This is a statistic that is provided or is kind of investigated by Bank of Ireland. And this 65 million of transactions per year is the volume that we are now kind of to address, to identify, and to process basically and investigate this type of typologies and characteristics on the data that can reflect, combined with the social media, the problems or the let's say the behavior that we will be looking at. Then in terms of technical, I think that's obvious from what I have said. The stream data processing is one of the main characteristics. The graph data model, that for the first time, there is a kind of an application of this graph data for the financial sector. The data sharing, which is always an interoperability aspect, and the multi-query processing and mashup builder is just a complementary part of this stream analytics engine for embedding the intelligence in the pilot. How we are, technically speaking, how we are architecting our pilot tree solution. So in the past, we have presented the mapping with architecture. Now we are kind of a more defining the components. And this orange part is pretty much the platform side in the services layer. In the red part, in the bottom, you see the infrastructure, which will be the Bank of Ireland infrastructure. And in the green part is more or less the different user interfaces that we are thinking in implementing at the moment. So the green part you can see is probably the plan. The orange is the one that we have also already demonstrated in some prototypes over the last year. So now we are going to extend it towards the Bank of Ireland because they were not involved before. It was only the plan. And the idea is that we will have more inputs or the more progress into AI power. So we understand that the AI or the explainable AI will help us to also extend these typologies, because at the moment the banks or the Bank of Ireland in particular, they already have typologies that are only related to financial transactions. But in the moment that we introduce other data sets or other type of data, so we need to extend these typologies to include those elements and more, let's say, more complexity, but at the same time, more richness in terms of analysis, in terms of results. We are also looking at these models that will use natural language processing, which is something that is also innovative in the sense of onboarding people. There is no such a system that instead of answering surveys or answering online will be an interview, and based on the interviews, I'm talking about machine readable interviews can be processed this data. At the moment, it's just people in the branch making an interview, and the departments of onboarding, they might have some experience of training, but it's still very prone to error because people can have different type of behaviors. So these NLP models can also help with this enhancing typologies. How this AI and SHI will be reflected, you can see the top of this graph is when we are talking about the pilot dedicated intelligence services. As I mentioned, this still is the most, let's say, on the development part of the pilot, because we just started in September officially with the new use cases. But all the infrastructure, all the prototypes that we built over the last year, over the last 2 years, basically, are now going to be extended towards these applications. And last but not least, I will just focus in summarizing the activities in the data model part, because I think this is relevant not only for the pilot, but also for the cluster. We are thinking from left to right in how the data is generated, how the data is processed and enhanced, how this is going to be validated and transferred for other units or other departments in the banks, and also how this can be a full process of services completion, right? So in the beginning, we have only the input data subject data. Then we do the data platforms or data formats by completing online or surveys. Then we create the templates based on this information that we will validate with the KYC, KYB. And then at the end of the day, we have this verification and update. And then until this point is when we say the data is ready to be used. Obviously, the data validation and the data verification corresponds to the graph, so the data graph. And here is when INFINITECH data model, INFINITECH graph model can help us. And at the moment, with Bank of Ireland, we're progressing on mapping the typologies that exist in not only in the Bank of Ireland, but also in the financial sector towards the INFINITECH graph data model. So the objective of this activity is to have a conclusive graph data model that satisfy the needs of KYC services. Now, thinking in the landscape of big data, obviously this could be an endless activity, but our reference points are the INFINITECH graph data models like FIBO, Fiji, and ELKIF that we believe they are solid enough or well known in the financial sector to include all different aspects. If there is new ones that needs to be included, obviously there is an opportunity to increase or to include these new vocabularies, new typologies. But so far in the process, we don't see more elements that are not included already. In fact, it's the opposite. So banks usually have the tendency to use less to be more efficient. But this is a still ongoing activity. We will report the progress on that. The most important is that we already have this online tool. Any of these processes are free to us to use, and we are in pilot 3 making full power on this capability that we have in the project. The roadmap is obviously to enhance implement the first quarter to have the workshop. Sorry, the fourth quarter to have the workshop, the one that I mentioned already. So that's why in December we will have a fixed date and we will announce it. Then we will have this data modeling mapping or data model mapping that we are doing with Bank of Ireland and the typologies. And then we will start to do our first standard project environment with the Bank of Ireland infrastructure. Then in the first quarter in 2022, we will go for this deployment and enhancement of the first industrial deployment or industrial pilot deployment based on our Sesame, based on our sandbox tools, and based on the traffic analysis scope as we have already initial version. We are in the process of integrating them. So probably by the end of first quarter, we will be able to see a more integrated prototype on that. At the moment, we have the 3 parts separated. But nevertheless, we already have the use cases in mind to also validate this part. Last but not least, that what Richard already reported is how the business motivation has drive this pilot. Yeah. So as I mentioned, financial crime include all these problems, money laundering, bank fraud, and there is a lot of business opportunities in here because every bank is looking for these solutions to invest or to spend to have the solution in at home. So and VPFI is, as you know, is kind of the voice of all the financial institutions and the banks in Ireland. So we believe that there will be some sort of a way to go out and extend not only for the Bank of Ireland as a partner, but also other partners in the ecosystem of VPFI. Then we have what we call the regulation, because obviously the regulation in anti-money laundering is limited, and there is no such a inclusion of this customer data verification. So we believe that with our technologies, we will be able to extend this regulation to be used, to use basically this approach to verify not only with transaction, but also with customer data, which is now the main target. And also we have these research activities that will provide more, let's say, collaborations or more, let's say, investment that could be the business motivation as well for our results. Richard already provided this one as well. I think we will receive feedback that this is at least for the first input is complete, and we are just mapping here obviously the key partners, the key activities that I already described, the key resources as a technology, resources and the value proposition as the graph data model and the financial transactions, and then the customer relationships and channels are the typologies and the VPFI ecosystem. So we are targeting some sort of a retail banks and retail ecosystems as a customer, but then on top of the infrastructure and on top of the revenue streams, we have these business opportunities. What is important to highlight in here is that Traffic Analysis Hub is a larger project that we managed to get involved in our pilot, and this is a way to also see the sustainability of our pilot, because even though when INFINITECH finished, Traffic Analysis Hub is a larger project at the international level. So all our, let's say, results will be hopefully adopted and adapted to be exploited in Traffic Analysis Hub. And you can see more about this Traffic Analysis Hub or Stop the Traffic, which are the international initiative. And that's it from my side. So if you have questions, I am happy to answer them. Thank you. And again, thank you for swapping the time just because I'm in the airport and my battery might get flat soon and I need to look for a electricity point, you know. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. One of the partners, yeah, Panayotis, do you have any questions on that, any feedback that you can share with us?
Sure. Watching the presentation, I had a few questions which were eventually answered within the last slides. For example, are there any other use cases? And the presentation already answered that we could track offshore, triangular, any other kinds of monetary fraud. My main question is if you have any feedback so far from the banks in terms of business model. How are they looking at your solutions? Do you have any, let's say, sales so far? Any banks that are ready to adopt the system?
Yeah, basically during the first 12 months of the project, Bank of Ireland, the Department of IT was involved, and we were having their feedback, and VPFI was kind of providing this feedback as a representation of the institutions in Ireland. As I mentioned before, this group unfortunately could not get on board, and then now with the new group, which is the EML group, anti-money laundering group, so we are looking at this data or these models that will be confirmed. And addition to that, hopefully this workshop in December will be the main target on this workshop, because we are especially targeting this workshop to co-create, this is the proper way, with them these models in PUC, the collection of requirements, but also at the same time it's also the data sharing and the collection of these typologies. And there's some disambiguation in here, because many banks talk typologies, and basically is the data model that they use. But bilateral, they also use the typologies to validate the information that they process. So this is still an ongoing discussion, but this is going to be to make the the data model of the banks more accessible from the perspective of graphs, not from the perspective of information, right? Because this information is sensitive information, but from the graph perspective, we can validate if they are going to be using this type of a genetic graph data model. That's the approach. And obviously, when we have the final date, we will announce it, and everybody can attend, because it will be an open event for everybody in the construction platform. Particularly this cluster, I think is relevant because it's the KYC focus, KYB focus area. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, I'm covered. I don't know if anyone else has a question regarding what you just showed us.
Okay, these were good. Thank you, Martin, for the presentation. It's very interesting. We're looking forward to see what you will actually bring to the market.
Have a nice trip.
Thank you. Yes.
Enjoy your flight. Okay, so according to the agenda and the schedule, pilot 5 was supposed to present, but pilot 6 informed us that they have an issue. So I would like to ask Silvio if it's all right for you if you can present like 25 minutes instead. If you can hear us.
Just give me a second. I think I have a hard stop at 12. Just hold on 1 second. Okay, let me rearrange it. Okay. All right, sure.
We really appreciate that. Thank you for this, Silvio. I guess politics can be a bit quicker, so we can all present according to the schedule. So hi, Gina.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for this change. So, Eleni, can you please share the presentation? Apologies for not opening my camera, but I've got a lousy signal here. I hope you can hear me well.
We can indeed, yes. So when you're ready, you can start the presentation. Thank you.
Just a short comment until we see the presentation. It's crucial, in my opinion, to see the social dimension of everything we do here. And we just saw that with trafficking, which is a very, very sensitive issue in Europe. So it's nice to see all the technologies working on something so beneficial for stopping those kind of issues.
That's true. And we also have seen like social media anyway playing a major role so far. Let's see for the rest of the pilots, but it looks like there's so much data available there and they can be used in different ways.
Eleni?
Yes, I'm trying to share.
Okay, I thought you were out. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, on behalf of NBG and of the rest of the team, I will mention the names of our partners afterwards. So we are building currently an personalized investment recommendation engine for retail customers, but not only an engine, as you can see in the next slides, it's just a full and end-to-end actually mechanism. We're aiming in personalizing our portfolio for each customer and make all recommendations and actually this whole process available to all retail customers. Now, as you can see in the next slide, we are starting, just if we put this in a diagram, we're starting from customer data, which are provided by National Bank of Greece, asset data, the customer investment profiling. So we are aiming initially for customers that haven't yet proceeded with any type of investment to understand which is actually their profile. So are they aggressive? Are they balanced? Are they conservative? So exactly to get the first view and see afterwards which is the best product investment product that we can actually propose them. Following this process and leveraging analytics, of course, and data management, the outcome of this is going to be in an end-to-end process in a GUI, which will be available for the financial advisors. And I will elaborate a bit more in the next slides. So our partners here are, of course, Crowd Policy, supporting the creation of the GUI and an end-to-end process. University of Glasgow, especially for the machine learning algorithms that are actually created for the recommendation engine. LXS, Ubitech, and ReportBrain, supporting also in more technical parts and in actually bringing real-time events, real-time figures in the big data infrastructure. Okay, I will skip this one. You can see actually the technologies mentioned in order to go a bit faster. And I will go here, starting from this mapping. So we are utilizing customer data, transactional data, data from the questionnaire, from the MiFID questionnaire, investment transactions, and of course, as I previously mentioned, social data. We aim first to harmonize the data, so we go through a process of data management, data cleansing, and anonymization, of course. And afterwards, in the whole analytics process, in the whole platform of analytics, where we take into account asset recommendation, customer risk analytics, customer profiling, previous history, social data, and of course, on top of this, we have the AI platform, the technology supported, and just another small break, but important, the business logic. So the financial advisors aspect, so which is brought into actually analytics part. So the very trivial thing could be which product is more easier to be provided to the aggressive ones, to the conservative ones, and so on. And this is why at the end, we want all this information to be fed and included in a specific UI. So a financial advisor at the end, which is actually the business perspective of all this analysis, will be that he or she will have the ability to see customer information, customer level information, to understand which is the profile of each customer. So do I have an aggressive person next to me? Is it a conservative one? So which is actually the aspect of each customer? What is the current portfolio? Is this customer having also at this time point some investments? Is he or she a new customer for this area? And at the end, of course, a series of investment proposals with starting with the top priority, so the best fit, the second one, the third one. So providing this, as we can say, it's actually a guidance, full guidance for the financial advisor, user-friendly, fast, and of course consolidated, including all the information that can support, first of all, the customer experience, so make everything faster, faster for the customer, faster and more efficient for the representative of the bank, for the financial advisor, and at the end, of course, gaining, creating a more loyal relationship among the bank and of course the customer. And this is exactly so from what we see from a business perspective. First of all, as a benefit and the part where this solution is competitive. So democratization, meaning that this is not just a solution that refers to the most affluent customers, but to all retail customers. We're introducing now new KPIs, which will be built actually at the end and after the operationalization. We've got some ideas now, but we need to see exactly how the process goes. So we're aiming to understand how more effective, more efficient this whole process is helping us get, and how we are able to reach the operational excellence model throughout this way. We get more granular information regarding investment recommendations, and we take into account real-time information and incorporate it. From a technical now perspective, the usage of real-time big data is, of course, something really important to us. The visualization is easy to use, easy to understand for a financial advisor. Data harmonization was also a very big challenge. And the fact that we are taking into advantage all machine learning libraries, and we're integrating these alongside with all the aforementioned. Now, in a nutshell, if we could put all the benefits together, we could say that we have three different dimensions. We've got the retail customer, the financial advisor, and the bank. Starting from the retail customer, we can see that they will gain a much better customer experience. They will have the opportunity to invest targeted in something that is closer to their profile. And as I previously mentioned, this is not only a privilege for specific customers, but for all of them. From the aspect of the financial advisors, so they're building a better relationship, more loyal, and in parallel, they're increasing their productivity. Now, at the end, for the bank, I would say that the most important is customer experience and customer loyalty, because if you find the best match for each customer, and you're the one to provide this information in an easy and fast way, this actually builds a much better relationship and trustworthy. So for MBG also, just to focus there, apart from what I mentioned previously on the benefits, throughout this process, we're exchanging information in terms of investments. We're understanding and exchanging knowledge, even more technical than what we are utilizing now. And of course, we expect to have at the end a beautiful and very, very easy to use UI to put it in production, to operationalize it, and provide our financial advisors a key to move on to the next level with their customers' proposals and overall relationships. So this is from my part.
Thank you, Gina, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Are there any questions other than the stakeholder? Someone that you like to ask anything? Oh, so Panagiotis, if you can provide some feedback.
If not, my main question, I'm working on Greek FinTech cluster as a collaborative entity. We would like to ask, how has this collaborative mindset of the project helped the pilot in terms of how did you benefit from the different points of view, namely banks, tech providers, and academics working on the same set of applications?
Well, actually, I see this as a benefit for us because we have all worked together. We're still working together and exchanging knowledge, of course, different technical knowledge, different parts of machine learning knowledge. And of course, something very key to this part is the combination of the business logic. Because, you know, sometimes you might have the best model, you might have the best, solution. And at the end, when business sense comes inside, says, yes, you might have all these indicators saying that your machine learning model excels. But if you don't put the actual operationalization and utilization on top, I think that it doesn't make much sense. So the part that we have with product policy, especially, and with the University of Glasgow and Report Brain, with LXS, and with all partners, in any case, this exchange actually of information and alignment, it's what makes the value of the pilot itself.
Okay. I feel it's beneficial for all. For example, the universities are getting feedback from the actual use cases in the market. The banks are getting the academics' opinion on several issues.
Exactly. It's a give. It's a give and take situation, if I may put it this way. So of course we all benefit. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Great.
Fantastic.
Please,
okay, perfect. Thank you once again for the presentation. We can invite the pilot 5 right now. Thank you, Silvio and Dimitris, once again for that. We really appreciate it.
So thank you thank you from our side. Unfortunately, I need to leave because I have another meeting in 5 minutes. So
That's
speak
fine.
to you soon. Bye.
Bye, Gina. We will see you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye, bye.
Okay, cool. So let's start pilot 5. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I'm very happy to be able to present with the team our project. So by the team, I mean myself, which is Silvio Walser from the Bank of Cyprus. I'm at the Bank of Cyprus, a digital product manager, and obviously the University of Piraeus, which have a major contribution to this project as well, Dimitris and George, which in due course will continue with the presentation. Let's dive into it. First, maybe to set the scene, some background. Why did we come up with this project? First of all, we wanted to address a real life need. And we're looking what are the pain points today within our society, looking at customers, various profiles. What we identified is that we all know this Google and Amazon, and everybody's talking about them, but very often it's the SMEs which are completely forgotten. And when looking at the numbers, one can see that it's really the SMEs which drive society, which drive the planet's productivity. And just a small example, I'm not sure you have heard about Black Shark, a startup company within Austria, who has significantly and majorly contributed to the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So it is really these small companies who can make a tremendous change, even so we only know the big ones. And that's also supported by the numbers, as you can see on this slide on the very first column, saying that 99% of all businesses basically are reflected through SMEs, which present 60% of the value. So it's not only in terms of productivity, but also employment. I'm sure you all agree, it's very important for everybody. So it's these SMEs which also provide a significant amount of employment. Now, when saying, okay, let's tackle what's the situation with SMEs, and when looking into the situation of SMEs, we can see that traditionally we have not spent a lot of money on them because it's difficult. There are many little animals, and to address their needs on a personal level, it wasn't really feasible from a cost perspective. And when diving deeper, we see that one of their major pain points is that they're spending a lot of time on trying to understand where they are with their business, on administrative activities, as well as getting the funds when they need them, because obviously they have to be very flexible. They don't have big research departments, etc., which can forecast their needs. They need to be very spontaneous and saying, I got a new project, I need money now in order to get it done. So the lack of liquidity is one of the major items. And that can be also seen and verified when we see how many SMEs go out of business, as this is the #1 reason. Now, having this target group as well as the underlying challenges established, we then said, how can we help them? So what could be the possible role we as a bank and the INFINITECH overall could assist? And there we said that what they're looking for is really to have some business support, to have tools available to them that allow them to update in real time what's the current business situation. So real time, having a business support, not in terms of doing processing like a bank normally does for SMEs in terms of transactions, having a credit card where you can go and pay. No, it's rather more rather more to understand and help them seeing quickly what's the situation. Now, obviously, we're very happy that this is not a standalone exercise for the bank, that we have valuable contributions and partners such as the University of Piraeus, GFT, as well as Cloud Policy. Going to the next slide, what is it actually what we are trying to achieve here? Now, what we want, as already elaborated on, we want to assist the SMEs in managing their financial activities. And by activities, we mean items such as budgeting, spending, saving, or investment of monetary resources over time. So we are trying to establish a smart virtual advisor, as you can see on the right-hand side of this slide, right in the center. This is a kind of a financial wellness coach for the SMEs that is leveraging AI and data to generate hyper personalized, tailored, actionable insights. What do we mean by insights? Insights are basically messages that not only take into consideration past activities, but also pending ones, as well as the most likely future events to happen. So with that in place, sorry, if you just go, yes, with that in place, basically we can establish and improve financial habits of the SME as well, leading to lower NPLs, better financial education, and in the end for the success of the SMEs. Now, what you can see here on that outer circle, there are various engines, because in order to come up with these insights, to give you an idea, insights could be relating to kind of activity summaries. So we would be summarizing activities like a budget tracker that tells you that you have a budget on, let's say, transport expenses. Where are you with this budget? Did you come close to your target? Are you, still within your target, etc.? This could be insights which are proactive forecasting, cash flow forecasting. So we let them know what is your upcoming activity, what are the payments you have to execute, as well as what is the expected income. But it doesn't stop there. We also want to engage, and engaging in this world and today means that you act with them in a kind of a gamification way. So the idea here is to have like insights where we would be doing quizzes, asking them, what do you think? How much do you spend on your stuff this month? They would tell an amount, and we would then say, yes, great, good job, you well done, you know what's going on, and outline also the details of that. So we would be doing kind of financial quizzes, and also important is having in place notifications when something unusual is happening. So, for example, there was a large deposit coming in, which wasn't really expected, to point that one out, or there was a refund. So really reducing the time they have to spend in searching for information, but rather more expose the information to them when it matters most, when they need it, when we know that it's important for them to know now. So that's the underlying idea. And in order to fulfill that one would need a number of engines supporting such a smart virtual advisor. And that is what you can see on the outer circle. You can see here, it starts with a transaction categorization. So first of all, you need to know what you're talking about. Then translating that one into the various models which can, as precise as possible, forecast the cash flow, coming up with some health statuses. So to have this kind of bezels, the alarms going off when we get into a red tier, having the transaction guard, like what we said before, having unusual behavior exposed, as well as benchmarking, invoice, and budgeting. So going to the next slide. Where does the innovation lie here? We're all aware that PFM tools, business financial management tools, they exist today. But there hasn't been a great success with them. And we believe one of the reasons is because they are not smart. They're looking into the past. Yes, they tell you you have been spending on your transport so much, but they don't give you really the chance to address upcoming liquidity challenges before they actually arise. So that's what we are trying to do here. We are trying not just to look into the past, but also having good models predicting the most likely events happening. So the whole is data driven. We intend not just to use the traditional transaction data, but also having a more holistic, comprehensive view by taking into account other parameters such as what is happening in the economy. We all know if there is a downturn, that means that income will also experience a downturn. So to take more into account to anticipate these future events. As a result, we have something in place which is not just a standard tool, which gives you, yes, you have so much on transport spending, but it's really tailored to you, to your industry, to your maturity level. Having that in place, so there needs to be other innovation happening as well, and that is basically on the right-hand side where you see the technology aspects of it. You see that we are trying to use obviously state-of-the-art models and processes in order to address the requirements we have. And for the banks, for the bank itself, it's a very nice way to move forward because establishing a test bed is pretty much a first exercise for the bank, which we haven't done, but we're very eager to continue. If you want to move to the next slide, please. Dimitris, do you want to continue from here?
Thank you, Silvio. Now, moving on, we continue with our business canvas. As a lot of these elements are mentioned throughout the presentation, just wanted to mention that the segment we have are SMEs operating in Cyprus, no matter their maturity level. And of course, we are talking about existing customers of the bank and the BFM toolkit, the bank hopes, and we as well being part of it, to increase the new customers to the bank coming for the new features offered to SMEs. Now, going a bit deeper to the architecture and the workflow of our pilot, you can see here a high-level diagram where on the left we have our data sources. Now that we are currently using customer account and transaction data, that would be around 3.5 million transactions of 1,000 SMEs for the years 2018 to 2020. We are looking forward to integrating open banking data where we have already done some work to be more ready. Then we want to integrate macroeconomic data from open source like Eurostat data and our optional, let's say, data source, which turns out to be like a technical and data protection nightmare, would be incorporating SME invoices and operational data. Now, depending on the needs of our component, we might need external, historical, and real-time data collection. And the pilot, we are really happy and proud to be one of the two first blueprint pilots developed in the project among pilots 2, where we used we developed all our components in the shared testbed kindly offered to us by GFT. And then we hope to replicate all progress to the bank's own cloud environment, also by AWS. And we hope it's going to be available from Q1 2022. Now, here it is the same actually workflow translated in the INFINITECH array, utilizing the component and building blocks available. We'll not go into much detail into that and move on. Now, we will move on to our KPIs and workshops. For the business-driven ones, we have chosen customer engagement, which will be measured in increasing customer login and time spent online, and the customer satisfaction, which will be measured in a customer 4 or 5-star feedback rating. Now, regarding the operational KPIs, we've got the transactions left uncategorized by the model, which that at an operational phase, it's going to be less than 5%. And we've got the smart virtual advisor response time with an ideal target being like producing the insights in less than 0.7. Now for the workshops, apart from the fruitful cooperation we have with Silvio, where we talk a lot like in a weekly basis, we are involved with other bi-weekly, extended bi-weekly calls with the SME division, the IT department, and other experts from the bank where they can help us develop the whole BFM toolkit. And Silvio, of course, is having internal stakeholders with other people in the bank. Now for the external ones, our first approach would be to go one-on-one with the 9 SME pilots, and we have started conducting those meetings where we got some really useful information from the SMEs. But our sample seemed to be a bit small, going with only 9 pilots, so we're thinking that we're going to have more than 1,000 SMEs utilizing the BFM toolkit. So we're trying to use other services or bank information to involve more SMEs in our external workshops. Now, what we did so far is first build the foundation of the virtual advisor, the transaction categorization engine, because all transactions were unlabeled, and it's really important to have, to have the label, and in order to develop the rest of the components. Now then we developed the cash flow prediction, which is heavily connected with other components and also a pre-requirement for the budget prediction component. And then what we're currently working is the benchmarking component, where it will one of the first ones to add extra value to SMEs by providing comparative analytics and visualization compared to other likewise business. Of course, we're not developing and designing independently. We're part of the INFINITECH, and we're trying to follow the INFINITECH way development, a CI/CD recipe. So we're working, due to the blueprint development, we're working with work package 6 partners intensely in order to migrate all progress to our own testbed. Now, just a glimpse of the components or technical components we developed and how we did it. For the transaction categorization, we had a 2-level hierarchical component where we have a master category and a subcategory. So we had like 20 master categories and 80 subcategories tailor-made for the SMEs. To give you an example, we had the payroll and benefits in kind as a master category, and that could be divided to staff salaries, training, private medical insurance, and the direct remuneration. Now, we had to follow a hybrid classification approach, which means that we had to hand label a lot of codes and elements from our data, and then we are applying a tree-based algorithm in order to create a hybrid classification model. So for the rule-based step approach, we have various rules, with the most important having like 5 pillars. So we first rule out transfer between own accounts. Then we use the internal code kept by the bank to have like a transaction code mapping. Then we have available MCC code, which is like a frame listed in an ISO framework, where we can get the underlying business of a transaction. Then we have the NASE code, which is widely used in all national service for statistics, where we can classify business activity as well. And then we can label many keywords, including mainly native retailers, service providers, and legal firms, which in total, having all those steps in our initial 3.5 million data, we had a total coverage of 94%. Now that 6% of our transactions, we had no clear identification of what would be the underlying category. So in order to recheck the ones we already categorized and categorize those 6, we allow the user to categorize ambiguous and uncategorized transactions, and then creating and saving, let's say, user-based rules. Now, the hybrid model is created that where once the user has already categorized the list of the transactions left, we only keep step 1 and 2, and we include the rest of the steps in the let's say the user-based rule. We feed that into a tree-based algorithm, and we produce our hybrid model. Of course, you want to know how we don't want that model to be a black box. So we are utilizing Lime and Sharp framework because explainable AI is a really trending topic and important, I think, for every AI algorithm. Another thing we did when we, in order to be a bit more ready about the open banking data, we created word embeddings based on the transaction categorization description using Word2Vec in order to be more ready, in order to accept later on open banking transactions, because the description is going to be the only identifier we're going to have. Now, for the cash flow prediction, we're using DeepAR model, which is a probabilistic forecasting method using autoregressive recurrent neural networks. And it is a global model, which means it was trained from historical data of all time series in the dataset. So the model seems to be really effective and able to learn seasonal behaviors. And even if we don't have a large transaction volume, we can still forecast, have pretty accurate forecasts when we have like a threshold of, if I remember correct, 10 or 15 transactions. Now, what we're working on is like the benchmarking model, which is, we must already develop the categorization and cash flow prediction model. And this engine aims to provide to SMEs an overview of spending and behavior of other business. Now, we are still, because you have still not set up the blueprint in the bank, which is required to set the data streams from the bank. So we still have the initial data. We are still working and experimenting with the initial data we received. So we have made the benchmarking based on two criteria. That would be employees, the number of employees, where we had like really small business, small and medium businesses, and the operating sector. And then when we have connected everything in the blueprint environment, we want to take the balance and other financial elements into account. And of course, the KPI engine will be really integrated, let's say, and interconnected with the benchmarking one in order to provide better results. Now for the demo, we would like to show, just to have a glimpse of what we are doing, a better idea of what we are doing. We are showing the cash flow prediction and transaction categorization model, everything working in our blueprint environment, where we have a REST API drawing data and then producing some results. I just wanted to point out that the front end is developed just for the means of the demo, and the final result is going to be developed by the bank at a later point, where the UI UX is going to be a way better, way more developed. Give me a second.
Let's see the demo for the Business Financial Management tool, which is the second blueprint pilot. This is work in progress. Today we will have a demonstration for the transaction categorization tool and the cash flow prediction tool. Both of them are the stepping stone for the forthcoming remaining tools. It is noted that the pilot follows the INFINITECH way. However, for the sake of time, we will not showcase each of the pilot's technological components in detail. So let's have a quick look at the Pilot 5B project under the Blueprint project. Here, all the required information to build and deploy the components of the first version of Pilot 5B are set up following the INFINITECH CI/CD process. In the context of the INFINITECH, we have also developed a functional Android application mainly for testing and demonstration purposes. For this demo, we will use the data of a dummy user. First of all, the user should log into the application by filling his credentials. Then in the first layout, he can see about money allocation in different transaction categories. More specifically, he can have a look at the pie chart where the percentage allocated in each category is depicted. Also, he can adjust the number of categories that will be visible. Apart from that, we can have a look at the absolute amount classified in each specific category. In cases where he needs more info for a specific category, he can just click on the specific category on the pie chart. For example, let's click on the uncategorized expenses category. That will trigger another call to the INFINITECH backend that will return the list of the transactions categorized as uncategorized expenses, and they will be populated in the list here. The user can further click on a specific transaction, and more details of this transaction will be displayed. From here, the user can change the category himself if he thinks it is not the correct one. This change will update this specific record in the Infinite Store. Let's change this one to utilities. Let's go back to see that we have one transaction in the utilities list, while on the main page we can verify the applied change. As we can see, we now have a utilities transaction with an amount of 200 euros. This approach enables both the enrichment and the update of the predictive classifier. Finally, let's have a look at the cash flow prediction. Here we can see a main bar chart where the green bars are the predicted inflows and the red ones are the predicted outflows. The maximum predicted horizon is 12 weeks, but the displayed window is adjustable. Finally, by clicking on each outflow bar, more details regarding the specific category of the predicted outflows are revealed on the upper half of the screen.
Great. And that would be all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dimitris. Videos and this type of demonstration are always very interesting. Before I let the stakeholders just ask the question, I would like to ask you, when it comes to the competition, have you made any research? Do you have any big names in your mind that are trying to poke the same industry?
Well, Silvio might be more, the right person to answer, but from what I've known, the competitions could be like, ERP providers, software offering exclusively BFM tools. But for now, in Cyprus, we don't know any other bank, offering a BFM toolkit or something meant for their business customers looking at a 360 approach. Silvio, if you have another opinion on that, or want to add something, let me know, please.
Maybe he cannot hear us. Okay, that's clear, Dimitris. Thank you. Anyway, it's always, because it's a very hot topic. Maybe you can get some ideas, let's say, from how they go on a business, from a business perspective to different regions, maybe.
Indeed, and I'd like to make a comment here that even if there are independent providers, we strongly believe that it's easier for someone to provide a lot of data, in their bank and not to like an independent provider.
Exactly. Hi, Silvio. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh.
Well, we can hear you now and then. It's like your connection is unstable. That's fine. Dimitris, I think he gave us a very good reply, and yeah. Let us know if you need any, market research or stuff like this. It's always interesting if anyone else knows something related to all the pilots, actually. It would be cool if you can share with each other. That's one of the purposes of today's meeting, just to see if we can help somehow to progress this one step forward and just create a better experience for the end users. So I will leave it to Panagiotis. Do you have any feedback or any comments on this pilot?
Yes, first of all, as I have graduated from the University of Piraeus, it's always nice to meet my university within projects. One question would be how are the SMEs responding to BMF tools? Meaning, are the end users ready to take advantage of the full functionality of these digital tools? Are they, let's say, digitally ready for them?
For the time, for the workshops we have conducted, we're showing engine per engine. So we're talking about the categorization, then a few remarks about the cash flow prediction, because we don't have the rest of the components ready. Now, because as I mentioned before, it's like their own bank. They have their core business and we are offering a service on top of that. So, we want to believe they are going to be more elastic, more able, to change and utilize that and conceive it as a part of their banking, a banking service. Whereas if it was an independent provider, perhaps it wouldn't be that easy, or they would be a bit more skeptical giving their data to a third-party provider.
It's also a matter of trust, of course.
Yeah, for the usability, how much they are using it, we'll get to know that at a later stage where we have like the first MVP used extensively by pilots.
One more question, which is not, it's more like a food for thought. It also goes for the rest of the technologies within INFINITECH, is how important it is to make our tools, first of all, user-friendly, and have them need as little user interaction as possible. Let's say make them invisible to the user, then should the tools be invisible?
That's a really good point because, of course, UI, UX, actually, the user experience is everything in nowadays. And, this is a main point for our development because we want to provide a lot of service, a lot of information, but you don't want, to be the user to be bottlenecked or confused with all that information. So you have to find the right balance, I believe, like offering service, but being also kind of minimal and everyone could use it, because maybe not all business owners have a business degree or are that experienced. So we're still looking for that, golden, let's say, balance, but we're gonna, we hope we're gonna find it.
Like the questions in the first pilot, if you have a user answering 10 questions, they could become not very specific on the answers. They could be
well, someone could be ready to answer 30 questions. One would be frustrated by answering only 5 simple ones.
So it needs a gamification and spreading the questions, maybe in different sessions of the user.
Yeah.
To make it more user-friendly. So thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Dimitris. Thank you, Panagiotis. I guess that's all from Pilot 5. Once again, thank you for just postponing the time and the time slot that you had here. Really appreciate it. Before we end, I would like just to provide an introduction of our stakeholder that was here today with us. He's actually representing a big amount of corporations and organizations here in Greece. So, Panagiotis, if you want to just give us a few key points of what you're doing and who else you're actually you're connected with. You are on mute.
Sorry. Greek FinTech Cluster has been a cumulative initiative led after a lot of successful collaboration within the hackathons, within accelerators, and actualizations of digital applications. So the actual cluster was founded in 2019, and it already consists of 12 members having signed the MOU. We have close to us 8 SMEs and 4 research organizations important in Greece, for example, IOVE, the Regional Development Institute, Academy of Entrepreneurship, the Hellenic Blockchain Hub. We have already signed the MOU, are core members of the cluster. We also have many universities and large enterprises and financial institutions being involved, having signed letters of intent, being close to us following the updates of the cluster. Our statutory purpose is actually to act as a collaborative innovation cluster within the field of fintech, also touching many cross-sectoral issues such as GovTech, InsurTech, and so on, fields which are really close to the fintech, with technologies that could spread across all of this. We also have a funding proposal approved, which gives us a budget for both collaborative actions and networking, trainings, and so on, but also, and most importantly, for developing applications such as the ones we saw today. So that is the purpose, to create a FinTech Academy, to create a marketplace. It's all very close to what INFINITECH is doing, so we could actually work on that collaboration and see which how we could benefit both ways. INFINITECH from the Greek Fintech cluster and vice versa, Greek Fintech cluster, getting close to what INFINITECH can do. It's actually leading the way as a flagship European project, so we are happy to witness what the project is achieving.
Panagiotis, if I may, do you already have a collaboration or a MOU in place with University of Piraeus?
No, with University of Piraeus, but we would be very happy
So
to.
it would be interesting, even for our project, but within the project team, but even in a broader sense for the university, it would be really cool, to have like an extra communication regarding projects, questionnaires, or whatever.
Yes, we love the collaboration with universities, so
you can
we
take
love
that
the academics.
And, have some contact. Thank you.
Of course.
Fantastic. Thank you for this. Maybe we should have done this in the beginning, but it's never late, but never. So before we end, I would like to just invite Ernesto for a final comment or any other feedback or anything else that you would like to share with us. Ernesto, are you here?
Yes, I am, and I was muted. So, well, first of all, congratulations for this workshop. I've heard a lot of interesting things from the point of view also of the project. So I thank you for organizing it, the presenter. We will look forward for some development. Again, I think that we should get out the project with this initiative to engage stakeholders, to get their feedback, because we need this to fine-tune our development. This will be for the sake of the project, and I'm thinking that we are on the right track. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Theo. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, and that's very important. As you said, let's get results and see feedback and see what we are actually building here makes sense for the community around us. Thank you all. This was Clusters 2 workshop for this semester. We will do that again in a few months. Thank you all again for being so responsive to all the emails, all the deliverables. We're all pilots are on a good track. So we're looking forward to see what the future brings and the end results actually of all these projects. It was good to see you all. Have a good day, and yeah, anything you know how to find us if you need anything.
Thank you. Bye
bye.
Thank you, Theo, for organizing everything.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, Theo. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.